Oh, I forgot I had this. It's like weird. Okay. Chapter 17. Adventure with Highwaymen and the Defeat of Don Quixote. They awoke late in the day and resumed their journey, except that Don Quixote decided to go to Barcelona instead of Saragossa. For 6 days they traveled easily without incident. But on the night of the 7th day, as they rested in a grove of trees not far from the road, the idea came into Don Quixote's head that it was high time Sancho should wipe off some of the lashes he had promised to take in order to free Dulcinea from her spell. Thinking it would be useless to appeal to Sancho again on the subject, he decided to take the matter into his own hands and himself give a few hundred lashes to Sancho. So, taking Rocinante's reins to serve as a lash, he went up to his sleeping squire and began to unbutton his clothes. Naturally, this woke Sancho up, and he asked Don Quixote what was going on. "I have come to make up for your shameful neglect by giving your bare flesh at least 2,000 out of the 3,000 and odd you agreed to suffer for my lady's sake. So take off your clothes at once." So basically, Don Quixote has gotten fed up with waiting for Sancho to give him his own lashes, so he's going to do it himself. "Not I," said Sancho. "The bargain was that I inflict the strokes on myself, as I see fit, and I mean to stand by that bargain, and make others stand by it too. I am not inclined to lash myself now, and so the matter must wait for the future." He's like, "Oh, no, you don't. I agreed to do it myself, and I don't feel like doing it right now, so I'm not doing it." "No, I've had enough of that nonsense," said Don Quixote, "and I have no confidence in your doing anything about it in the future." With that, he grabbed Sancho, who in a moment had taken Don Quixote around the chest, kicked his feet out from under him, and laid him down so gently on his back, where the knight was held so firmly that he could not move. So who won in that little wrestling match, Sancho or Don Quixote? Sancho. "Traitor!" cried Don Quixote. "How dare you rebel against your rightful master and use violence?" No. I'm only defending myself," said Sancho, "and I've used no more violence than necessary for the purpose. If your worship will promise to leave me alone and leave the whipping matter to me, I will let you up." After some more discussion, the knight agreed, and the squire helped him to his feet. Then Sancho went to look for another tree to sleep under. As he rolled under one nearby, he became aware of something dangling over his head. Reaching up, he felt a man's legs, with shoes on, swinging above him. Astonished and afraid, he shifted to another tree, where he found yet another pair of swinging legs. Jumping up in terror, he ran to Don Quixote, calling loudly, who came to him and heard his story. Together they felt around in the darkness and found not 2 pairs of dangling legs, but several pairs. Look at the picture. Okay? What is hanging above them? Micah? Actual dead people. Yeah, that had been strangled or hung. "No doubt," said Don Quixote in a reassuring tone. "Officers of the law have been busy around here, hanging highway robbers on trees, and sometimes they do by the dozen. There's nothing supernatural about it, and you do not need to fear. It's a sign that we're near civilization. Barcelona cannot be far off." Dawn proved Don Quixote to be right. The dangling legs did indeed belong to the bodies of hanged thieves. But this fact was hardly certain to the knight and his squire when they were suddenly surrounded by 40 living robbers, who told them not to move until their captain arrived. Resistance was useless. So now they're captured by these robbers. Don Quixote's weapons were some distance away, and his gallant steed, free of her saddle and bridle, was off grazing among the trees. So they remained still, awaiting what was to come. Not so the robbers, who set to work emptying the pouches and wallets on Dapple, robbing them basically of all their stuff. Fortunately, Sancho had taken the precaution of putting his money in a belt around his waist, but even this might not have saved it from the nimble fingers of the robbers, had not their captain arrived and interrupted their searching. He was a fine, robust man of about 34 years, mounted on a good horse, clad in armor, and armed to the teeth. He was clearly superior to his followers. He approached Don Quixote, politely introduced himself as Captain Roque, he was a famous brigand in those days, and asked for Don Quixote's name. "Sir," answered the knight, "I am Don Quixote de la Mancha, the world-famous knight-errant. Though I must admit to neglecting my duties as a knight, and allowing myself to be surprised unarmed and without my horse. Had it been otherwise, my capture would not have been easy for your men." Captain Roque had heard of the extraordinary character and adventures of Don Quixote, and was very pleased to meet him. He treated him and Sancho in a friendly, hospitable fashion, and ordered his men to return all the things they had taken from the pair. They had apparently come into the woods to divide the plunder of other robberies, and they went on with that task for some time. They were just barely done when one of their scouts came back with the news that a group of travelers was approaching on the highway. Instantly there was bustle and excitement. The captain gave orders promptly, with decision, designed to ensure that none of the travelers would escape capture. He did not join his men, but stayed in the woods to talk to Don Quixote, who was surprised to find that this murderer and robber was actually well educated, came from a good family, and had a naturally gentle manner. Revenge and a sense of injustice had brought him into the life he now led. So Captain Roque was actually a pretty good guy, but something had happened in his life that he wanted to get revenge for, which caused him to become a robber. Now he's like the leader of this gang of robbers. Don Quixote was earnestly trying to persuade the captain to abandon his desperate criminal career, which could only have a disgraceful end, when his men returned with their prisoners. Among them were a couple of pilgrims, 2 infantry officers on the way to join their regiments, a lady and her daughter traveling under the officer's escort, some servants, and a couple of mule drivers. The travelers were questioned by Roque about who they were, why they were traveling, what money or valuables they might have, and so on. In the end, the prisoners admitted to having enough valuables worth some 900 crowns. After some debate and pleading, it was finally agreed that they would hand over 150 crowns as a ransom. Roque then gave them a written pass to protect them from being seized by any other member of his band that they might meet later on in the highway. Basically, if they were they had 900 crowns worth of money. They gave him 150 of that, and he agreed to let them go after that. He's like, "If you give me this, I'll let you go," and they did. He also gave them like a little pass, basically, so that as they kept traveling on that same road, if any other members of his gang basically tried to catch him later on and force him to give more money, they could say, no, your captain already caught us back there and we already gave him some money. They wouldn't get robbed twice. Does that make sense? The travelers then went on their way again, delighted to have escaped from such serious danger at so little cost. For 3 days and nights Don Quixote stayed with Captain Roque, sometimes hiding, sometimes waiting in ambush, always watchful and alert. They were excellent company for each other, and the captain was especially pleased by the originality of what the knight had to say. So we had Don Quixote, this knight-errant, hanging out with Captain Roque, the leader of this robbing band of men. Interesting matchup. In the end, Roque and 6 of his men escorted Don Quixote at night along back roads into the outskirts of Barcelona, and there parted from him with thanks for the pleasure of his company. Roque was a gentleman by birth, who had taken up his life in the wild woods because of political persecution. He was not a common robber. He told Don Quixote that he had sent word to friends in Barcelona to ensure that Don Quixote would have a good reception from them. As he bid them farewell, Roque gave Sancho 10 crowns, and then he and his men rode off. So here's Captain Roque, their new criminal friend, basically, and then Don Quixote and Sancho. Their parting took place near the seashore early in the morning. When day broke, the knight and his squire saw, for the first time in their lives, the mighty and boundless sea, with the rising sun tipping the rippling waves with gold, the ships at anchor heaving in swells as their flags and pennants fluttered in the breeze. Boats and barges were passing in all directions, and the air was filled with the sound of trumpets and drums. It just so happened to be the day of a naval and military review. In a few minutes, a large body of cavalry in brilliant uniforms emerged from the city. Then there was a roar of cannon and gunfire from the ships and the shore, and from the ships and the shore, and a mock battle began. So, like a mock battle is not a real battle, but it's when the ships perform like a fake battle for entertainment, like putting on a play. Don Quixote and Sancho watched the spectacle with amazement and delight. As the morning wore on in this way, a party of elegantly mounted gentlemen rode up and saluted them. One, who appeared to be their leader, addressed Don Quixote by name and title, and introduced himself and his party as friends of Captain Roque. He was Don Antonio Moreno, a wealthy nobleman of Barcelona. Don Quixote acknowledged the greeting and accepted Don Antonio's invitation to enter the city as his guest. The party then formed into a procession, led by a band playing music, and headed towards the city, attracting a boisterous crowd that laughed at the outlandish knight and his squire and teased Rocinante and Dapple. For the next few days, Don Quixote was handsomely entertained by Don Moreno at his mansion, and introduced to the sights of the city. But the knight was freely made use of as the butt of jokes by his host, too. Many pranks were played at the expense of the innocent gentleman and his squire. Don Quixote got into the habit of riding down to the shore every morning, fully armed, to exercise and keep up his knightly training. Though always ready for adventures, he was none the less surprised one morning to see, coming towards him, another knight-errant, who bore a shield with a brilliant full moon painted on it. When the strange knight came within hearing, he called out, "Renowned Don Quixote de la Mancha, I am the Knight of the White Moon, whose incredible exploits you have no doubt heard of. I have sought you to do battle with you, to test the force of your arm, unless you are ready to admit that my lady, whoever she may be, is beyond comparison with Dulcinea del Toboso. If you will admit this fact, you will spare me the trouble of taking your life. If you prefer to fight, and I defeat you without killing you, I shall require that you, on your honor, give up being a knight-errant for 1 whole year. If you triumph, and I am at your mercy, then my horse and arms become yours, and the fame of all my victories will pass to you." So this is like the ultimate battle. Okay? This strange new knight-errant comes up to him. He claims he's the Knight of the Full Moon, and challenges him to a battle, and says, "If I win, you have to give up being a knight-errant forever." Oh, for a whole year. You're right, for a whole year. Thank you. Don Quixote was momentarily as shocked by the arrogant tone of the White Moon Knight as he was by the reasons for the challenge. But in a moment, realizing the seriousness of the situation, he answered calmly, "Sir Knight of the White Moon, whose valiant deeds I have never heard of before, I venture to swear that you have never seen the beautiful Dulcinea. For if you had, you would not have made this demand of yours. So, without calling you a liar, but merely saying you are mistaken, I accept your challenge, and at once, so that the matter may be settled immediately. I do not desire to have the fame of your exploits, because I do not even know what they are, and I am content with my own, such as they are. Take your ground, and let us see who heaven favors. Micah? As they talked, Don Moreno and some of his friends rode up and wished to know what was the matter. On hearing Don Quixote's explanation, they thought some outsider was interfering with their privilege of fooling the knight. As they stood in a state of wonder, the rival knights wheeled their steeds and made a battleground between them. At the instant they came face to face with each other, they charged forward. The White Moon Knight was better mounted, and his fleet horse was in full gallop when Don Quixote had just begun. As a result, the White Moon Knight, who seemed to avoid pointing his lance at Don Quixote, collided against him with such force that Don Quixote and Rocinante were both forced suddenly to the ground. Notice he seemed to intentionally avoid pointing his lance or his spear at Don Quixote, intentionally missing him. The victor jumped down and drew his sword, calling on Don Quixote to admit defeat and acknowledge the inferiority of Dulcinea, to which the vanquished knight answered, "She is no less beautiful because I am unfortunate and unworthy of being her champion. You can take my life, but you cannot kill the truth." "I do not want either," answered the White Moon Knight. "All I expect of the great Don Quixote is the accepted condition, 1 year's absence from knight-errantry." The bewildered spectators urged Don Quixote to accept these favorable terms, which didn't even insult Lady Dulcinea, and were no more than what he had bound himself by honor to do. Don Quixote admitted as much, and gave his promise to the White Moon Knight, who then galloped away to the city. So because he lost, Don Quixote now has to give up being a knight-errant for a full year. Both Don Quixote and his horse were badly hurt by the encounter, and lay stretched out on the ground, unable to get up. Finally, a chair was sent for, and the knight was lifted into it to be carried into town under the care of Sancho, who was as upset over his master's condition as he was over the prospect of an unprofitable year in retirement. Meanwhile, Don Antonio lost no time pursuing this White Moon Knight to find out who he was and what he meant by this mysterious business. He traced him to his hotel and came upon him in his room as his servant was removing his armor. The knight replied frankly to Don Antonio's question. "I am Samson Carrasco." "Job, Micah," he said. "I'm a friend of Don Quixote, whose madness has long been a cause of distress to his family and neighbors. His folly has excited pity for him from all who know him to be an honorable and generous gentleman. I pledged myself, meaning I promised, to rescue him by any possible means from his wandering and dangerous life. Rest at home in the care of his relatives and friends is his only chance of being restored to reason and health. I could think of only one method to achieve this goal, and today I have succeeded in accomplishing it. This is the second time I've tried." What happened the first time Samson tried to defeat Don Quixote and get him to go home? Manny? Because Samson Carrasco's horse randomly just stopped in the middle of running. 3 months ago, as the Knight of the Mirrors, I tried this same trick and failed miserably. I was mounted on an unmanageable beast, and Don Quixote unhorsed me in a moment. I was hurt so badly that I was laid up for several weeks. I managed better this time, but now, sir, I must rely on your honor not to reveal what I have told you. For Don Quixote can be counted on to keep his pledge only as long as he does not discover the deception. He's like, do not tell him who I am. He will only keep his promise if he thinks I'm actually a knight. "Oh, well, you can rely on me," said Don Moreno, "though I wish the world was not to lose the amusing performances of the knight and his squire. And tomorrow see what happens.